So again, hello, my name is Ken Smith from IU20. This is a training on talking about deep feelings with our kids. And our trainer today is Mary Turek, the mental health professional at the East Stroudsburg School District at the high school campus south. So Mary, the floor is yours.
Hi guys, and thank you everyone for coming. I just want to clarify, my name is actually Mary Batchelor. It's my married name. Turek is my maiden name. So if you're a little confused at the screen telling you my one last name versus what's on the presentation, I do apologize. It's a lot to change your name. So I just want to give everyone a little bit of heads up. I do have a yellow-headed Amazon parrot who likes to scream and yell when he hears me talking, and I am not talking to him. I'm in the other room. I don't think we'd be able to hear him if he screams, but if you hear random screaming, it's just my parrot, and I'm very sorry. So like Ken said, I want to talk today about how we talk about deep feelings with our kids. Let's see. There you go. So some of the deep feelings that I want to talk about today are feelings of depression, self-harming behavior, suicidal thoughts. What we're going to do is we're going to talk about what these things and these feelings are, and how to start the conversation with them about these topics and how to respond to their comments or things they might say to us. You may be asking, why do we want to have these conversations? These conversations, I truly believe, need to happen often, regularly, and start when they're very young. The younger we start with these conversations with the kids, the more normal they are, and the more likely they'll be able to come to you when something is really bothering them. And it'll also give them words to put to their feelings. So kids, you may be asking, why would I want to talk about self-harm with my kids if they're not self-harming? Why would I want to talk to them about depression if they don't seem depressed? They're going to have exposure to things like self-harm, suicidality, depression, anxiety, either through their friends, through school, through media, through TV shows. I can't scroll through like Facebook or any other app without seeing something related to one of these things throughout the day. TV shows, I know a lot of shows will sometimes have things like this in there. 13 Reasons Why is one of the things that comes to my mind right at the top. It addresses the suicide of a young girl, and it goes through the progression of why she died by suicide. And, you know, it brings up a lot of things and for kids to talk about or to think about. Talking about these things creates that open line of communication with your kids. It gives them supports and lets them know that they can come to you. It gives them the ability to put words to their feelings, and it helps them learn how to navigate their feelings and prepares them for different situations. Whether it's maybe they themselves feeling this way, or maybe a friend or a classmate that's struggling. One of the things we want to be mindful is where and when we're starting these conversations. Like I said, the younger your kid is, the easier it is going to be able to start these conversations. When you start it with a middle school or a high school student, sometimes they're like, ew, why are you talking to me about this? Our younger kids are a little bit more open to different topics, but it's never too late to start. Start the conversations in safe, comfortable spaces. You know, timing is key. You don't want to start this conversation in an argument. You don't want to start this conversation when they already seem agitated. The dinner table is my favorite place to start conversations about things. Activities that you guys normally do together that are just calming and relaxing, whether you go for walks together, bike rides, whatever it is that you do as a family together. You want to be mindful of your body language, what cues you're giving off, your facial expressions, your body language, your movements. Kids are very, very, very adept to knowing what we're feeling just by our body language. They know us very well. So if our body language and what we're saying to them doesn't match, they're going to be aware of that. We want to be mindful of our tone, our rate, and our volume, especially when we get into how they feel if they're talking to you about they themselves feeling suicidal or they themselves engaging in self-harm. How we respond to them is really important, and your tone and your rate and your volume is very, very important. And when you're starting these conversations, you want to allow your child to be honest and be as free from judgment for how they're feeling. Their behavior is a different story, but feeling sad, feeling angry, feeling anxious is okay. How we express those things is a completely different story, but feeling the emotion itself is okay. And they should feel free of judgment to express the feeling itself in their words. Depression, how I often hear it referred to as, is always being sad, not wanting to do anything, feeling down, withdrawn, or moody. These are the words that are often given to me on referral slips for students that I take, for students that I see. How it actually presents in my kids, though, is a loss of interest in doing things. My kids no longer want to go do the things they used to do. They have a low tolerance for frustration. They're easily angry. My boy clients, especially this, they often present as angry, as uncooperative, as defiant often. My girl clients, however, on the other side are overly emotional or crying, and that's what they're described as. And that's exactly what they express to me. They'll say, I'm so angry all the time and I don't know why. I'm so frustrated with everything and I don't know why. My clients that are struggling with depression either sleep too much or not enough. I have kids that come in and tell me I can't sleep at all, and other ones that tell me I can barely get up in the morning and go to school. And when I get home, all I want to do is go back to sleep. Some students struggle with eating. They either eat all the time and comfort eat, or they have absolutely no appetite. And they're withdrawing from their friends and peers. If you're seeing any of these things in your kids, it may be an indication that you want to talk to them about the depression. Maybe you need to see what's going on. Maybe there's something else going on, especially when it comes to eating and sleeping. There could be some medical things that you may want to roll out. But if they're not hanging out with their friends anymore and they're sleeping all the time and they're easily agitated, these are some indicators to me that they're probably struggling with something emotionally. Comments from my students when we talk about depression is, my parents don't think I should be depressed. I get this one a lot. Kids often get the impression from their parents that their needs are met, so therefore they shouldn't be depressed. That they have food on their table, that they have clothes to wear, that they're able to do all the sports that they want to do, that their parents are supportive, that therefore there's no reason they should be depressed. And unfortunately, our emotional state isn't always directly tied to having our needs met. Having our needs met is very, very helpful, but it doesn't mean we can't be struggling with depression. If that was the case, celebrities like Robin Williams, in my mind, wouldn't have died by suicide if it was just having his basic needs met. I'm not allowed to be sad. So kids often feel like they're not allowed to feel negative emotions. And this is for two reasons. One, they're often taught to repress that sadness or that like emotion of crying. And other times they just feel guilty that they're making other people sad, or that their parents are upset that they're upset. I feel numb. A lot of my students that are really struggling with depression have like no emotion, and they think it's weird. It's like, I can't feel anything. It's hard to explain or put in words. It's another one I hear in intakes a lot with kids, is they just can't figure out the words to use to describe how they're feeling. My dad says it's a phase that I'll grow out of. I mean, we all go through phases, and maybe we may have some downer phases, but depression isn't a phase. It's a mental health condition. And if it's not treated, I mean, realistically, depression sometimes gets better on its own without treatment. Absolutely. But for many of my students, having someone to talk to, seeking medication or therapy supports, helps the depression go away much quicker. And for some individuals, that depression is much deeper and is part of either a more severe disorder like bipolar or schizophrenia, that it's not a phase that they're going to grow out of and they're not going to get better without some form of intervention. Life is too hard, school is too hard. My kids that are struggling with depression are overwhelmed with everything. When my students come to me about the depression, they're also often talking to me about anxiety. They're like best friends. They go hand in hand. Not every student that struggles with depression struggles with anxiety, and not everyone who struggles with anxiety struggles with depression, but there is this very nice overlap in at least with the clients that I work with and the clients that I've worked with in the past. And they tend to avoid the people, teachers, students, classwork, a lot of different things. Anything that makes them anxious, they like to avoidance is the key to making anxiety worse. And it also makes them feel better because they're not anxious anymore. These are my students who fidget or are unable to sit still. They shut down, they don't talk. They have to have things in a set way or a set order. Some sort of sense of control helps with their anxiety. Being fixated on a certain order and not wanting to be alone or left behind, especially in those younger kids. A lot of my younger kids struggle with separation anxiety. I don't work with little kids anymore. My previous position, I worked K through 12, and my little ones, my kindergartens, my first and second graders often struggle with that separation anxiety. So just be mindful. How to start the conversation. Most importantly, you want to be age appropriate, and you know your child best. So you know where they're at developmentally and where to start that conversation based on what they'll actually understand. We want to meet them where they're at. I may have some 17-year-olds that I need to talk to in a way that I would talk to like maybe a 10-year-old, because their emotional intelligence or their emotional, like the way they frame their emotions and their emotional intelligence is a little bit lower. Meanwhile, I have some middle schoolers that I can talk to like they're seniors in high school, because they're just, that's where they're at emotionally. They know how to express themselves. They know what words to use. They know what those words mean. And when we talk to our kids, we want to define what we're talking about. We want to use something that helps them, whether it's a movie, a song, a picture. Do something to help trigger the conversation sometimes. One of my favorite things is movies. You can find a movie that talks about depression. You can talk about movies that talk about self-harm. For self-harm, a neat movie to watch with like high schoolers is 13. It's about this young girl who struggles with self-harm and depression and drug use. And it just creates a dialogue for you to talk about those things with your kids. If you have younger kids, I love the movie Inside Out. We're going to watch a clip from Inside Out in a little bit. I absolutely love that movie. When having a conversation, be honest with them and at an age appropriate level about your own feelings. You know, kids need to see that we're also vulnerable. They need to know that they're not alone in this. Talk about how you've dealt with those feelings, whether it's current or past. And again, you want to keep that at an age appropriate level, because we don't want to be overbearing to our kids. But if we're struggling with depression, you know, talking to them about, you know, going outside to spend time with my animals or going for walks is what I've done in the past that's helpful to me. Like expressing that to your kids kind of builds a connection with them and shows them that there are ways to work through it. Ask them if or when they, asking them if or when they feel that way. Like, have they felt that way recently? Do they feel like that often? And validate them. If they're telling you that they felt anxiety or depression, validate them. And leave it at that. Just, you know, it's really hard when you're really sad. I can see why that would make you upset. Just allow them to feel the emotion. Allow them to talk. One of the hardest things for parenting, I think, is trying to avoid problem solving for them. When you're talking to them about their emotions, just allow them to tell you how they feel. Avoid trying to tell them what to feel. Avoid trying to solve their issue. Avoid placing any judgment on how they feel. We want to separate our own feelings. We want to separate our feelings from our behaviors when we're talking to them. You know, we're depressed, we're sad, and this is how we act because we're sad. And separating those two things, because sometimes what happens is kids are sad or they're angry and they react, and then it kind of affects their self-image because they react really angry, and maybe they make some poor choices when they're feeling depressed or they're feeling angry, and now it's going on to their self-image. And we want to separate their feelings from their behavior so we can be like, yeah, you know what, you're sad, and when you're sad, these are the things that we can do that are really helpful and make us feel better, and these are the things that are kind of making us feel worse. We want to problem solve with them. How can they cope with their feelings? How can we help them reach a happier state or a more calm state? What can we do? We want to problem solve with them. What do they think would work? Giving them ideas. And if you hear the yelling in the background, that is my bird. He's starting to scream, so I do apologize. I don't know if you guys can hear that. I want to play a clip right now from Inside Out. It is, for those of you who've not seen the movie, it's actually a really, really cool movie that Disney did. And I'm not a Disney fan, but what they did is they took this little girl, Riley, and she moves from one city to another, and it follows her through this path. And as she's doing this, we're seeing inside her head, and her head is controlled by 5 major emotions. And 2 of her emotions get lost in another part of her brain. And it's sadness and joy. And joy is normally who's running Riley's brain. And when sadness and joy are lost, they can no longer control her emotions and her reaction to things. And she's left with disgust, anxiety, and anger, controlling her reactions to her environment. And I love this so much because when somebody's struggling with depression, often we just see them as really sad, when in reality, there's all those other emotions that are reacting to anger and anxiety and disgust. And I think it brings to light all the different things and aspects of depression. And you watch Riley as she has like internal conflict with herself, with her identity, with her values. And it's just a It's just a really good movie from Disney. I'm gonna see if I can figure it out.
So, as it turns out, the green trash can is not recycling. It's for greens, like compost and eggshells. And the blue one is recycling. And the black one.
Riley is acting so weird. Why is she acting so weird?
What do you expect? All the islands are down.
Joy would know what to do.
That's it. Until she gets back. We just do what Joy would do.
Great idea. Anger, fear, disgust. How are we supposed to be happy?
Hey, Riley, I've got good news. I found a junior hockey league right here in San Francisco. And get this, tryouts are tomorrow after school. What luck, right?
Hockey?
Uh-oh, what do we do?
Guys, here, you pretend to be Joy.
Won't it be great to be back out on the ice?
Oh, yeah, that sounds fantastic.
What was that? That wasn't anything like Joy.
Because I'm not Joy?
Yeah, no kidding.
Did you guys pick up on that?
Sure did.
Something's wrong.
Should we ask her?
Let's probe, but keep it subtle so she doesn't notice. So, how was the first day of school?
She's probing us.
I'm done. You pretend to be Joy.
What? Okay,
It was fine, I guess. I don't know. Oh, very smooth. That was just like Joy.
Something is definitely going on.
She's never acted like this before. What should we do? We're going to find out what's happening, but we'll need support. Signal the husband. Ahem.
Uh-oh, she's looking at us. What did she say?
What? Oh, sorry, sir. No one was listening.
Is it garbage night? We left the toilet seat up. What? What is it, woman? What?
He's making that stupid face again.
I could strangle him right now.
Signal him again.
So, Riley, how was school?
You gotta be kidding me.
For this, we gave up that Brazilian helicopter pilot?
Move. I'll be Joy.
School was great, all right?
Riley, is everything okay?
Sir, she just rolled her eyes at us.
What is her deal? All right, make a show of force. I don't want to have to put the foot down.
No, not the foot.
Riley, I do not like this new attitude.
Oh, I'll show you attitude. No. Stay happy.
What is your problem? Just leave me alone.
Sir, reporting high levels of sass.
Take it to DEFCON 2.
You heard that, gentlemen? DEFCON 2.
Listen, young lady, I don't know where this disrespectful attitude came from.
You want a piece of this, Pops? Come and get it.
Yeah, well...
Here it comes. Prepare the foot.
Keys to safety position. Ready to launch on your command, sir.
Just shut up!
Fire!
That's it. Go to your room. Now.
The foot is down. The foot is down.
Good job, gentlemen. That could have been a disaster.
Well, that was a disaster.
Come, fly with me, Gachinya.
I can figure out how to get out of the screenshot. Okay, sorry. No, I don't need to play it again. Sorry, I'm not very technologically inclined in this. Okay. So I absolutely love this clip. I absolutely love this movie. Again, if you have small children, this is a great movie to watch. It's going to trigger some really good conversations with you and your kids. One of the things I do like about this is if you notice, each person has somebody else controlling their mind. So in the mom, the main character is sadness, and in dad, it's anger. For Riley, it's joy. And it just creates a good conversation piece. Who do you think runs your mind if you had to pick between those five? I actually have this conversation with my middle schoolers all the time. Sometimes even my high schoolers, if we're talking about this and they've seen the movie. In this scenario with Riley and her parents, her mom is trying to probe what's going on. I'm going to venture the guess Disney didn't give us the backstory, but this probably isn't a conversation they have very often. Riley seemed like a really well-adjusted kid in the movie prior to the move, and it seems like they probably don't talk about those things very often. And sometimes that's what happens in families. Our kids are doing really well, so we don't think to have the conversation because they are doing so well. And you know, then we just don't think about having it, and we don't have it, and then they're struggling, and we know we don't have the tools we need now to talk about it. another thing that happens in this movie is we have two parents who are clearly not on the same page on how to respond in the situation. We have dad who's not paying attention and mom who's trying, and their nonverbal communication between each other isn't that great. And that's just something that happens. I know even with me and my husband, our nonverbal communication sometimes just doesn't exist some days, and other days we're right on par with each other. When we have these conversations with our significant others, with our co-parents, with whoever we're parenting with, whether it's a family relative, older sibling, whatever the dynamic is for your family, being on the same page to have these conversations can be really helpful. Riley is struggling with these emotions and she doesn't have a way to express them, and her family, instead of listening and exploring what's going on, as they become very punitive and very much that I want respect, which isn't a bad thing. And I'm not saying, I would never tell you how to parent your own child when it comes to discipline, but sometimes we have to look past the behavior and see what's causing it. Where is that emotion coming from, and exploring that a little bit, because she's struggling and she just doesn't know how to express it. And as we can see, the people running her brain, anger, disgust, and anxiety, have no clue how to respond to the parents in the way that they want. And when you're struggling with depression, you're struggling with anxiety, our brain isn't working at full capacity to respond to those situations. And as an adult, we have days that are bad. There are days where I don't want to talk to people. There are days where I'm just actually irritated or I'm easily frustrated. Giving our kids grace during these moments can be really helpful for them to learn that, yes, I'm frustrated, and it gives them time to think about what might be causing it and work through it. Especially if we're following that up with those conversations about what's going on today. How have you been feeling? Tell me more about it, rather than rushing to that, I don't like this attitude and I don't like that response. One of the other things I want to talk today about is self-harm. Many of my students who struggle with depression at some point either have engaged in non-suicidal self-harm, or they have thought about it, or they've had friends that engaged in it. Self-harm has become more prevalent among my caseload over the last couple of years. More and more of my students express having tried it or knowing a friend that tried it. Self-harm is causing physical harm to oneself with no intent of ending their own life. So these are my kids that are often cutting. That is usually one of the things that's most prevalent for my age group. For younger students, you may see headbanging. Little kids in tantrums may hair pull, headbang, they may bite or scratch themselves. Some of my cases I've seen burning. These are all just different forms of self-harm. Some of the misconceptions that come with self-harm is the person wants to end their life. I have worked with many clients who self-harm, and some of them may also struggle with suicidality, but they're often not connected. For some they are, but for the majority of my students that I work with that engage in self-harm, they don't want to die. That is not their intention. They just want to end their pain. And for them, taking control and causing themselves pain, physical pain, alleviates an emotional pain. They're doing it for attention. This is the one I hear the most. And you know what, even if they are doing it for attention, they're harming their body, and we need to respond to it. We can respond to the behavior to keep them safe. Cutting is the only form of self-harm. That's not true. Like I said, there's kids that may struggle with headbanging or hair pulling, burning. There's many different forms of self-harm. They will grow out of it. It is a phase. I worked in my last job at a different agency, and I did family therapy in addition to the individual sessions I did with the kids. I would do so many hours with a kid, and then we would do it together as a family. And what I discovered is some of my kids have struggled with self-harm, and so do their parents, and they still struggle. If they don't find new coping skills, if they don't develop a healthier way of dealing with their negative emotions, self-harm does not go away. They need some form of intervention. And some people are able to do that on their own, but many are not, and they need that support of a parent. They need that support of a therapist or a psychiatrist. Another misconception is it's not common. So like I said, self-harm is more common than we'd like to think about. Many of my students that engage in self-harm, it's a deep, dark secret they don't want to talk about. They don't want to share it with other people. These are my kids that'll wear long sleeves in the middle of summer because they don't want to see the new cuts on their arm. They may not want to go swimming or go places that might reveal different parts of their bodies that have marks. Another misconception about self-harm is if I talk to my kid about it, it'll put the idea in their head. And I hear this one both about self-harm and suicidality. We're not going to put an idea that's not already in there. If they're struggling with it, it's not going to be because we had a conversation with them about it. They're too young to have the conversation. We want to keep things age appropriate. We definitely don't want to be talking to our 5-year-olds about cutting when they don't really have an idea what that is. But if you have a 5-year-old and maybe you have a child in daycare or kindergarten or somewhere and you're at an activity and you see a kid throwing a tantrum and hitting their head, you can start the conversation there about how, when some people are really upset, they cause harm to themselves. Some kids hit their head, and talk to them about different ways to deal with that emotion they're coping. And if they've ever felt that way at their level. And again, it's never too early or too late to start these conversations with our kids. When we're talking about self-harm, we want to remain age appropriate. Again, with our younger children, we want to talk about these big feelings. You could possibly use examples if you've seen somebody who's struggling with headbanging or hair pulling, like in a social event. You want to be honest with them. You don't want to give them more information than they need, but you definitely want to answer all their questions. If they are engaging in self-harm, you want to talk to them about their triggers. You want to problem solve with them to find solution. When are they engaging in the self-harm? What are the things that lead up to it? Are they specific events? What are they using? Help them problem solve to have replacement behaviors, because we can't take away a behavior without giving a replacement for it. So if we don't want them engaging in self-harm, we want to find a different skill that they can use when they're feeling that way. And when you give them that replacement behavior, it cannot create more work than self-harming would, because it's more work than the old behavior. They're never going to put the effort into it. Some of the things that I talk to my students about when we're talking about different solutions to the self-harm, sometimes we start with things that are really simple, like putting a rubber band on your wrist and snapping it, because it still creates a little bit of a pain sensation without causing a lot of physical damage. Reaching out to a friend, drawing, writing. Another thing I talk to families about when their child's engaging in self-harm is taking away their means to self-harm. Being mindful of where knives or razors are, if that's what they're using. We don't want to baby them to the point where they feel like they have to hide things, but we want to be mindful and keep them safe. We want to talk to our kids about what they should do if they have a friend struggling with self-harm, because maybe our kid doesn't struggle with self-harm, and that's awesome. But we still want to talk to them about it and maybe give them solutions or what they can do if a friend is struggling. Because that's the other thing I get a lot, is I get students coming to me about their friends who are engaging in self-harm and their friends who are struggling with suicidal thoughts. And there are ways for our kids to get their friends help that doesn't give away their identity to get them in trouble with their friend. Safe to say, for all our schools have Safe to Say. We talk about being able to report them to SAP teams, talking to guidance counselors and trusted adults to get them help and support. If your child admits to engaging in self-harm, the first thing I want you to do is remain calm. You want to validate their feelings. You want to thank them for trusting you enough to tell you. You want to keep your own emotions in check. You want to make sure you're not overreacting or underreacting. Because, if you are concerned that it's attention seeking, you don't want to feed into it too much and kind of reinforce it, but you don't want to ignore it either. Ask them to tell you more about it and evaluate their risk. How many times, how often, what method? And then you want to seek support, therapy, medication, management, medical treatment if it's needed for an open cut or a deep cut. And you just want to make sure that they feel heard. Often my kids who are struggling with self-harm don't feel heard. And don't be afraid to come to I know all of this, East Stroudsburg, we're going to talk about them because this is the district that I work in. I know our district is very open to helping students get support. Coming to the guidance department about this, they're not going to judge you. They're not going to create an issue for you. They just want to help your child. So if you come to the guidance office in the JTL or High School South, I know those guidance counselors will do everything they can to put you in the right direction to get support. They have lists of therapists that are in the area. We have school social workers in all of our schools in East Stroudsburg. If you're having trouble getting treatment due to like insurance issues, or maybe not having insurance or having insurance out of state, whatever the case is, we will do what we can to help you find the support you need for your child. We won't just ignore you. Self-harm can be really scary to deal with as a parent. It's okay that you need support too. My comments I hear from my students that engage in self-harm. My parents just tell me I must want to go to the hospital. This goes along with that misconception that people who are struggling with self-harm just want to die, or they want to end their own life. And that creates big tensions, because then my kids don't want to talk to their parents about it. They don't feel they can talk to their parents about it. We want to avoid threats, and we want to avoid shaming and avoid judgment with them. We want to focus more on their adapted skills. So if you have your child is struggling with self-harm, we want to help them focus on the skills that they can use that are going to make them feel better, that are healthy for them. If they're talking about self-harm, talk to them about what else they can do, and praise them when they use those other skills. Make a big deal. If you're worried about it being attention seeking, make a big deal out of them using the right skills. Help reinforce the use of the right skills. They say, I just want attention, is the other one I hear very often. And again, that could play a piece for some, but we want to respond to that behavior because we don't want them hurting themselves. Focus on when they cope in the right way, praise them, and spend time with them in other ways. Sometimes my kids that are very attention seeking just truly want attention from their parents. They want to spend time with them, but they don't know how to ask for it in an age appropriate right way. Suicide. There is people who are actively suicidal, and meaning that they currently have they want to die and they have a plan. I also have students who are passively suicidal, have passive feelings of suicidal. They want to die, but they don't want to make a direct plan. These are the kind of people that wake up and they're like, maybe I'll walk it, maybe I'll get hit by a car today. They're not actively seeking to die, but they're not looking to protect themselves or keep themselves safe. So they'll walk across the street without looking. They may not read the right doses of medication and just take it and hope for the best kind of deal. Where other people are actively feeling suicide, have more active feelings where they have plan, they may have a plan, they may not have a plan, but they know they want to die. Some things that may come up around suicide is discussing the loss of a loved one by suicide, or the loss of somebody in the community or in the media who passed away by suicide, or even past feelings of suicidality. When we're talking about it, we want to be honest with them at an age appropriate level. Let it come up naturally when possible. I was a 90s kid. I remember when Kurt Cobain died by suicide, and that I was a very punkish kid. So this was, one of those things that I'll always remember, and it had a lot of conversations with my friends about that at that time about that. Sometimes things just happen in the media and they just come up. We want to avoid stigmas and stereotypes. Things I hear from people a lot are only people who are weak die by suicide, or only people who don't care about their families die by suicide, or even just the words, they committed suicide. That's also stigmatizing, because yes, it's an act, but it's a negative connotation on somebody who may have lost their life to suicide. We want to be mindful that we're saying died by suicide rather than committed. We want to allow them to express their views and their feelings about it. And we want to talk to them about the warning signs. There are a lot of warning signs when it comes to suicide. And yes, there are those cases where there was no warning sign. There wasn't many warning signs. But for the most part, we're going to see warning signs. We're going to see people pulling away from their loved ones. We're going to see people giving away treasured objects, changing something about themselves right before. Sometimes people who have extreme suicidal feelings feel really happy right before they decide to act upon it, because they made that decision, and they're happy with that decision. We want to talk about ways to seek help, and we want to talk to them about ways to seek help for their friends, and ways that they can notice if their friend is struggling, because not everyone's going to say, I feel like dying today. If your child does come to you and they say, you know what, I've been really struggling. I don't want to be here anymore. I just, you know, I wish it was over. We want to take it seriously. We want to stay calm, and we want to talk with them about how they've been coping with it, because it's probably not the first time they felt this way. Evaluate their current risk. Was this a past thought or a current thought? Get them professional help and support. We want to, whether that's crisis eval, whether it's counseling, whether it's medication management. We want to review their support options they have both at home and in school, because we never know when those feelings are going to come about. And we want to make sure that they have a plan if they're feeling that way at school, if they're feeling that way at home, whether they're out with friends or in the community. What can they do when they have those thoughts? And I know sometimes when we think about talking with our kids about suicide, that it's like that self-harm, we're going to put that idea in their head. And that's just false. You can't put an idea in there that isn't already there. I had a student that I was working with. She graduated last year. She really struggled with suicidality. She was one of those ones who knew just the right thing to say, that I couldn't force her to do like a crisis hospital eval, because she knew just the right wording to be like, yeah, but I don't have a plan and I don't want to, and I'm okay. Like, she just knew just how to answer things, that even when I sent her for a crisis eval, they sent her home because she wasn't quite at the red level to need hospitalization. But I truly feel that was more based on her awareness of what to say and to say it. But she said to me once when we were in session, I asked her about the first time she remembered feeling this way. And she said she was really, really young. And it wasn't until she was 7 or 8, she said maybe even 9, she was watching TV, and she was watching a TV interview with an actress that she liked. I want to say it was Selena Gomez. And they were talking about her struggles with mental health. And the actress said that, you know, she had felt like, she described not wanting to be here anymore, not wanting to be alive anymore. And she said, you know, I was feeling really suicidal. And my client looked at me and she said, you know, that was the moment that I realized that how I feel has a name. How I feel is not completely bizarre and out there, that other people felt that way and I didn't feel so alone. Having these hard conversations with our kids gives them the words they need to use with other people. It gives them the language they need. It allows them to express themselves. And more importantly, it allows them to seek help and support, that they don't have to go through these things alone. So many kids and adults are struggling with mental health because they don't know how to ask for help. They don't know how to seek the support because they've never had these conversations with other people. We make this part of our everyday life. It makes it so much easier for our kids to come to us when they're struggling. It makes it so much easier for them to say, you know what, I'm having a really hard day today. I'm feeling depressed. And it makes it a little bit easier for them when they're struggling with harder feelings such as self-harm or suicidality to come to you and say, I'm not feeling good today. I don't want to be here anymore. Because when we already have this conversation set with our kids, it's just so much easier to talk to you about it. If you're struggling with one of your kids and you think they need support, Scranton Counseling has a walk-in crisis center in Scranton. New Perspective does mobile crisis where you can call them and they will come to you to do supports. There is a suicide hotline, which is 988 now. There is a volunteer crisis counselor line where you can text and connect immediately with a counselor. And for those families that are struggling with depression, anxiety, or suicidality, or self-harm behaviors and fall into the LGBTQ category of self-identity, the Trevor Project has a lot of resources and support for individuals that need help, especially when it comes to transitioning or emotional relations to identifying as LGBTQ. We are a little early. I don't know if anyone has any thoughts or questions. You're welcome to unmute yourself and ask or make a comment. You're also welcome to type it into the chat. I know I talked a lot about different things. I also know that I can ramble and speak quickly. So if you need something repeated or you just want me to clarify something, feel free.
One thing, Mary, I'd like to just say is there's a lot of, I think, crossover with some other types of situations you would deal with as a parent. So you may have an angry teenager because of whether it's grades or boyfriend or girlfriend issues or sports related. And it looks a lot similar to, or looks very similar to, maybe something down the road that is depression, that is anxiety. So I think it's important to always keep in your head the potential of having a discussion about why someone's acting a certain way, and not to try to convince yourself that it's probably because of a bad basketball game they had, or a fight they had with their boyfriend. Because sometimes having a difficult conversation like discussing depression, discussing suicide and self-harm, sometimes there's a tendency in your head to want to guide the question to the answer you want to have, which is, oh, I'm not feeling that way. I would never do that. I don't think in that way. And sometimes if the person you're speaking with, your son or daughter, feels like you're asking that question with a certain answer in mind, they will give you that answer, and it's not necessarily the accurate one. So there is crossover with which normal everyday kinds of stressors. They look the same, they may feel the same, and don't assume that one type of behavior is, and one reason for the behavior is the only reason. So, and that's where like the challenge and the difficulty is.
There was a question in the chat. The movie I did reference was the movie, it's called 13. The girl in the movie is 13 years old. Like I said, it's definitely a movie I wouldn't watch with like middle schoolers or elementary school students, but high schoolers. This girl struggles with self-harm, drug use, suicidality, and it just kind of follows her through like a year of her life as she spirals. And, I think it creates a good talking point with kids about like, have you ever felt this way? How have you dealt with it? And, from a parent's perspective of how the parent struggles in the movie.
I did check the general chat and there wasn't any questions. I don't know if you had any individual questions, Mary, on your direct chat.
That was the only one.
Okay. All right then. So just to kind of reiterate where we started, that this is being recorded, and I will have the video file up on our website under Family Resources, in the same location where the flyer for the Parent Caregiver Workshop series is. So you'll be able to watch the video anytime you want, or recommend the video to anyone you want. If by chance you would just like the video file directly to you so that you have, I'm more than happy to do that. I'm also happy to share the slides with you. All you have to do is send me an email and I will send over the slides and or a video file of the training today. But like I said, it'll be on our parent resource section of our website as early as tomorrow afternoon. And we plan on doing some version of this next year and adding to that resource library. So it'll always have new information, hopefully every month when we do these trainings. Just 1 second. All right, so there's some people requesting the video file. So, okay. Mary, anything else you want to discuss with the group or share with the group, or anything related to the training topic?
No, I just want to thank parents for coming out and attending this. I think depression and anxiety is definitely one of those things that, and suicidality and self-harm, are things that kids are really struggling with nowadays. And I've seen a really big increase in students needing support for these. So I love the idea, like I love seeing all these parents out here wanting to actively be present in their child's life and be aware of what's going on. So thank you for coming.
And just one last thing. I know this topic of having conversations and having difficult conversations is something that schools really focus on, even with coaches and teachers. And there's a number of different programs that are being offered in schools now. The one that comes to mind is called QPR, Question, Persuade, Refer. So it's a topic that really focuses on helping teachers, helping coaches, helping the professionals and the support staff in the school ask the difficult questions, see the warning signs, and initiate that conversation. A lot of what we discussed here today. So that's also another particular training area or topic if you're interested. Question, Persuade, Refer. It's called QPR, Suicide Awareness Training. And there's a QPR Institute with a lot of resources for your review. So one last check of the chat, and people are thanking you, Mary, for the training, and I thank you for your time and effort. And I appreciate everybody, all the parents, for coming out today. Again, please contact me if you haven't already with any requests for slides and or video files, and be aware that the video file will be on our website tomorrow afternoon. And if nothing else, then thank you very much. I'll stop recording, and I hope everybody